Thanks for tuning in to the Realtor Moms Podcast. We are Tasha and Jamie, full-time realtors in the FM and surrounding areas, and admittedly average moms. This is how we sell homes and try to keep our kids alive.
Today on the Realtor Moms Podcast, we're talking about how to figure out how much you can afford when you're in the house buying process. Like, for somebody who's never purchased a home before,
how do you figure that out?
Right.
And that's why we're here today.
How do you know if $150,000 is in your price range, or $250,000, or $250,000 with $15,000 worth of special assessments, or $400,000? I mean, how do you put that into a perspective that makes sense to you for your budgeting?
Yes, exactly.
So what's the answer?
Well,
no.
Well, the first step I tell people is, well, I find this. I should take this back. Many times when I sit down with buyers, what I find is what they want to afford, but what they can is very different. And the reasoning why is, okay, we only want to spend $1,000 a month, but we want a $300,000 home.
Sure,
those numbers are just not going to add up at the end of the day.
And do you find too that it's not so much that they're looking at $300,000 homes and saying, put this into my $100,000 budget, but it's more like the things they're asking for are things more commonly found in a different price range?
I find sometimes the things that they're asking for in price ranges, sometimes age of home, area, location. Sure. Think about the location.
Right.
The location, if you're looking in an area that has more new construction homes, but then guess what? There's such a taxes and specials are higher in newer areas.
Yes, generally speaking, you are absolutely right.
And then what you find if you're paying higher taxes and specials, then your monthly payment is going to go up. So when we're kind of taking a look at amenities in a home versus what's not in a home and location, you add that all together, it really can impact what that monthly payment and that purchase price will look like.
Totally. I have found that actually, so I feel like we should both say, like, right up front, you should get an opinion from a lender.
Yes.
A mortgage lender.
So that was actually what was going to be my number one topic.
Right.
But,
and
but
it's for the people who are just like tipping a toe into the water of maybe they want to look into real estate. Like, so,
and then kind of look at monthly payment. Yep. And then also what you want that purchase price to look like. Because if you have some of those answers in front of you, it'll make sitting down with your mortgage lender easier when you do make that appointment.
Oh, totally. Yes. And I have come across a healthy sized handful of folks who, so they hadn't been to their mortgage lender yet, but they wanted to see homes. And I don't know if I've said this before, I will show homes potentially, depending on the situation. One time we can go out and look at houses before you're pre-approved. But after that, it just becomes this weird, after you've gone and met with a lender, it inevitably ends up changing more than half the time some of the parameters of the search. Regardless of whatever it is, it ends up changing. And then we find that, we've kind of either wasted that time or somebody's heartbroken or, we're starting over.
And
so
that's always
that's
the
why
worst.
We push for mortgage right off the bat. But I have found in multiple occasions that people are actually underestimating what they can comfortably afford. Not that they want to spend more, but that they thought, X number of dollars a month was equivalent to a $200,000 home. Or they thought it would cost a lot more per month for this $350,000 home, when really, when we take other things into consideration, it was actually less than they anticipated. So it's not always that you're overpricing. Sometimes
you could be underpricing.
You're underpricing.
So it's important to look at that.
Yeah.
Though I will say, to kind of backtrack, the worst is, and I don't want this to ever happen to anyone looking, to fall in love with a certain price point and then realize, no, I can't afford that.
Right.
Because it's going to be very difficult to, put your expectations into the new reality.
Yeah. You're totally right. That's worst case scenario. It totally is. To show a bunch of houses, or to even be looking online for an extended period of time, clicking on favorites and liking properties, and then you kind of get into a certain mindset, and then you have to kind of back down, and
we
yeah,
can't afford
it's
that.
really difficult. Totally.
So it's the last thing that we want to see
Right.
someone go through.
Right.
So,
And I think a word of caution to all consumers out there: the online mortgage calculators.
yes.
They, for one, they're really sort of ambiguous. So they're meant to give you a broad possibility of what your payment could be, but they can be off
Very
by
much so.
a lot of dollars per month, a lot. And especially in Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, and the surrounding area.
Because of the specials.
Yeah, they just don't even have a field for
that.
special assessments. I mean, if you're on top of your game, think about it like a tax. So just plug it into the taxes section. But even then, that's not always a great representation.
They might have the interest rate off.
Yes,
and
I see a lot of them defaulting to like 8%.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, our rates are so great right now. If you're letting this mortgage calculator figure out a number for you at 8%, I got good news for you.
Yes. Interest rates are not that high.
You can afford a lot more home for that payment. So, and which interest rate will you get? Which is another great question for a
your mortgage lender. So, number one tip, talk to a mortgage lender.
We hate to sound like a broken record, but it's really the only way to not put the cart before the horse, I think. Although, like I said, we will definitely meet with buyers and talk about some of the things so that you are most prepared for that appointment with a mortgage lender too. And we can look at some homes online together. We can run some real rough estimates. Again, not anywhere near as close as a mortgage lender can get you, but we can help get you started and point you in the direction and give you some referrals for a great mortgage lender too if you need.
Well, a lot of times what I like to do as well is print off some of the listings and the information so they can take that to their mortgage lender.
So the
and so they
specials
can
and the taxes.
correct. And then the
HOAs.
mortgage lender can run those real life scenarios of what their payment would look like. When they're sitting down and talking about, should we put 10% down or 20% down, or do we want to stick to 5%? Or for the people that are looking between FHA and conventional loans, what does that 3.5% to, let's say if you want to do 5% down, what are those, what does that look like for you and with the homes that you are interested in?
Right.
So.
And figuring out too, so maybe you've got a little nest egg of money that you think you're going to put down on the purchase of a property, and then just having someone to sit down and go over the numbers with you specific to a property, even where running scenarios like, if I put $40,000 down on this property, what does my payment look like? What if instead I financed that $40,000 instead of putting so much down? Because now I've found a loan program that only requires 3%. Or maybe you end up buying rural and it's USDA and you get 0%. Or potentially you put that $40,000 towards special assessments. What does that change for the payment? And you'd be surprised.
Maybe in that kind of a scenario, you may want to work with, if you have a financial planner, to talk about what does that look like for if you invest some of those funds versus putting such a high down payment.
Right.
So there are a lot of options, and it's, as much as we want to help you, we're not experts in those fields, and so we can give
we're experts in a lot of fields, but we're not mortgage lenders.
We are not mortgage lenders. We are not financial planners, and we know
some great ones.
We know some great ones, and we can give some good recommendations.
Yeah, and we just want to make sure that when you set out for what could very likely be the largest purchase of your life up to this point, that you're as prepared and educated as possible.
Correct.
So thanks for tuning in.
We would love to be your realtor, so reach out. Replay or hear more episodes at RealtorMomsPodcast.com or check us out on iTunes. We post funny stories and more information on Facebook and Instagram too, so check us out there as well. This podcast is produced by Tasha Barrett and Jamie R. Swenson of Park Company Realtors, Fargo, North Dakota, 701-237-5031.